And then I
People, we are here for our very first vlog. It is me and Rogue. Rogue in the back. Rogue, say hello. What's up? He ain't talking to you guys, sorry. But we are here at Bay Village Disc Golf Course. We're gonna talk about Gregor Mendel and throw some frisbees and have some fun. Let's do it.
As I have made a selfie stick out of a golf club and tape, we are getting big time here. Rogue, come! First off, look at how sick this area is. I've never played here before. It is super cool. Rogue, what's it down? Alright, so we landed pretty darn close. Let's see if we can make the birdie on camera. This is awkward. And we do. Good boy, Rogies. Good pose. He loves disc golf, people. Loves it. Tour. I'm in a creek by a big cliff. I'm standing on a really interesting piece of history. So I'm standing on a piece of sandstone, most likely the Berea sandstone, out in this area where I am right now. And you can tell that it's one, really fine grained underneath my feet, and two, you can see ripples. We can see physical ripples in the rock. And we talked about this one day in class. When we see these kind of ripples, it indicates that it used to be some sort of water-based environment, most likely a dune of some sort. So let's talk about the successes and failures of vlogging thus far. Successes, don't know. Failures, fell in the creek while I was trying to talk about ripples. So we are currently leaving the disc golf course. I figured out that for me to do this on my own, no one else to film me, and to have my dog running around like a crazy person, picking up every frisbee and jumping all over things, didn't work out very well. So, back to the car. Plan B, on its way. Hopefully, Plan B is a little bit better than Plan A. So we are back with Plan B. I'm in the woods. My wife tried to hide, but there she is. She's now in frame. So we have a basket set up somewhere about 100, 120-ish feet down this little corridor behind me. Welcome to my classroom, where we break down everything that you need to know to be successful in 8th grade science. This is where we're going to be doing all the breakdowns, the drawings, the Punnett squares, and everything in between. Here's your first chance to really meet my dog up close and personal. He's a fighter sometimes, but we're going to kind of pick up where we left off. You're up. That's not what you're supposed to do. That's not what you're supposed to do. No, sit. That wasn't a good boy. Stay. And we're going to keep on rolling, because that was actually pretty funny. Get out of here. Alright, so what we're going to be focusing on is like the 4 things that we learned last week that we need to kind of review. So anytime we're in this classroom setup or the upstairs bedroom in my house, we're going to be talking about the brass tacks, getting down to what you need to know to be a successful 8th grade student, prepping for your Ohio State test or any finals that are coming up, or transitioning into that high school year. So last week we talked about 4 things. That was sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction, meiosis, and mitosis. You guys broke those things down for me really well. As experts, you presented them, we all figured out what was the differences between those words that sounded so similar. How were they connected? And then we introduced a guy named Gregor Mendel from the 1860s, a monk and researcher who collected data on pea plants and the offspring of certain pea plants' parents. So he was pairing up these different colors, and then he was finding out what the offsprings would, their traits or their phenotypes, their physical appearances, what they would look like. So then we broke it down into something called a Punnett square. So we had 2 entrants. We had 2 parents. We typically listed the male on the left side and the female on the top. Now, you just saw my dog, and we talked about Weimaraners having 2 different alleles for colors. An allele is just that packaged gene trait that gives traits down to that offspring. One from the mother and one from the father that impacts the way that dog or that organism will look. We had Diesel, Rogue's dad, and then we had Bella, Rogue's mother.
And when we introduce Punnett squares, we always use allele pairs as capital and lowercase letters. Capital letters stand for the dominant allele and lowercase for the recessive allele. So we create a square. We're going to use the letter W for Weimaraner. So Diesel, I know, was purebred homozygous dominant. And those are words that we're going to have to really refer back to the disc golf portion of our vlog today.
So back in my room, we were talking about Gregor, Mendel, and Punnett squares, and how we can have inherited traits that pass down through two parents. So here I have two different frisbees, and I want to talk about heterozygous versus homozygous. I said it a couple times in my classroom, but I want to kind of break it down and do frisbee comparisons, since this is kind of what this vlog is all about. So these two frisbees have identical color. That means they are both having the allele for red coloring. Both are going to be dominantly homozygous, meaning completely red. Now, the thing about alleles is they only impact one factor or one trait of that organism. And for our frisbee cases, it only depicts the color of the frisbees. These are exactly the same frisbees with the exact same allele structure for color, but they do fly completely different because there is no impact of color on performance when it comes to frisbees. I'm gonna take a few examples of throwing them right now. That one goes completely dead straight. This one should curve to the right a little bit different. And it does, in fact. So what that is showing us is that even though the color traits are matching up from those alleles, showcasing that they are both homozygous, meaning the same color, having two alleles for the same color, they do not impact the other traits like flight characteristics for these two frisbees. And lastly, the other difficult term for us to really understand is heterozygous. And heterozygous is showing that we have two different alleles that don't quite match up. In our room, we were talking about Rogue and the Weimaraners having two big W's or two little W's. That would make something homozygous. Here, we're heterozygous. The color alleles for the traits of these frisbees are different. One pink, one blue. And now sometimes we talked about dominant versus recessive, and in this case, they're frisbees, people. We don't know which one's dominant or recessive. Oh, nailed it. That one's ripped. So remember, as a recap, we have two really specific terms, heterozygous and homozygous, and we're looking at the allele structures, the pairs of the two letters. We have homozygous, meaning both of those letters are exactly the same. Big W, little w, little w. And then with heterozygous, those two letters are going to be different. One uppercase and one lowercase.
And we're back. Now that we know what a homozygous dominant pair is based on the frisbee analysis we did, we can kind of go back to Diesel and we can see that his two alleles guarantee that he is fully silver. So there are two colors for a Weimaraner. We have silver and we have blue. And now they're not literally blue like this marker, but they're more like a dark charcoal. And we kind of talked about that in class when we did this. So they're a dark blue charcoal, and the silver coloring is dominant, or the allele that is going to represent itself most commonly and will snuff out any other recessive allele like blue. It'll be hidden. Anytime there's a dominant, there's going to be a silver colored Weimaraner. Now we indicate these things with capital and lowercase letters, so anything that's dominant will be capital, and anything that is recessive will be lowercase. So when we look at these, we can take Diesel, who was purebred, dominant, homozygous, dominant, two big capital W's. We look at his mom, Bella, and Bella was big W, little w. This is all about the heterozygous, or the mix of allele types, one dominant and one recessive. So Bella and Diesel are Rogue's parents, who you just saw bark at me, and we have a Punnett square. Now these capital letters are going to correspond with a certain row, or they're going to correspond with their certain column. And we kind of use this almost like a FOIL method for math. So the two W's fill the first quadrant. So I have a W from Diesel and a W from Bella. Two capital W's. That offspring in this quadrant will be just the same as Diesel, homozygous dominant.
We look at the other quadrant. We have a capital W from Diesel and a lowercase w from Bella. Continuing on, we have another capital situation, and then we have a capital lowercase. So what this is showing is each quadrant represents a 25% probability. Now, when you're predicting offspring, you can never get it perfectly. I can't say that Diesel and Bella are going to have a litter and X amount are going to be homozygous dominant, X amount are going to be heterozygous. But I can predict, using probability, using these quadrants. So each quadrant represents 25% probability. I have two quadrants with capital or homozygous dominant, which would mean that those two quadrants add up to 50%, so half of the time, on probability, that Bella and Diesel have an offspring, it's going to be a homozygous dominant full silver Weimaraner. Rogue, my dog, is silver. You guys saw that coloring. And then when we go over to the other two quadrants, 50% of the time, we're going to see a heterozygous relationship with the alleles, but those heterozygous relationships still create a silver Weimaraner. Because anytime there's a dominant allele present, the dominant allele will show itself over the recessive. The recessive will kind of hide out. So now let's take a few differences. Let's take Diesel out of the equation. Let's take Bella out of the equation, and we'll take my dog, for example. We're going to erase everything else in between. And so when we do this, we can kind of picture what would it be like if Rogue, who is a heterozygous Weimaraner, mated with another heterozygous Weimaraner. We use this name in one of my classes, so it's kind of stuck. And so we have this as a heterozygous Weimaraner as well. And so when we do the Punnett square for these things, and I fill this first quadrant, I get a 25% chance of having a homozygous dominant allele pair. A 25% chance of another heterozygous. A 25% chance of another heterozygous. And on our last quadrant, we can finally see this homozygous recessive relationship where we have two recessive alleles. It is the first time, at least our little board description here, where we've seen anything that will showcase a blue coloring. Now that's really interesting, and this is why Gregor Mendel found this so interesting, was because the beginning pieces, Rogue and Scarlet, were both silver. Just to finish this off, kind of go through what we already set up, we had two silver Weimaraners breeding together, and their offspring didn't create all silvers. And that's kind of the first thing that made this type of Punnett square or these kind of discoveries really astonishing, is because you would think two silvers would make more silvers. And they do, 75% of the time. It's a 3-to-1 relationship. But 25% of the time, we're going to have a different recessive allele showcase itself, and there'll be blue Weimaraners. It's pretty fascinating. We're going to do more practice. Up on Google Classroom, we're going to put a sheet. My first mod class did already get this sheet in person. None of the other classes have. So I will put that up there. We'll have some different Punnett square examples where you can try out on your own. There's also going to be a little definition page on the back, because one of the hardest things about this entire unit is getting the difference between all these words. It's really vocabulary dependent. So we have asexual versus sexual, and meiosis versus mitosis, and heterozygous versus homozygous, and dominant and recessive, and phenotype and genotype. All of these different words that are really difficult for us to kind of piece together. So on the back side of that worksheet that I have posted on Google Classroom, you can work on your different definitions to kind of help you understand just those little differences so we can be all on the same page, the lingo, whenever we go over certain examples of Punnett squares. Here's the basis of it. Do your own practice. These Frisbees, I just kind of want to put the challenge back on you guys. We're bumped up over 50 subscribers without even posting up a pretty single video, I guess. At 100 subs, we rock full mustache for one episode. She will hate it, but we will rock a full mustache for one episode. On Wednesday, I'm bringing some guests, a special guest. We're gonna go do a fossil hunting day somewhere in the Berea area, actually. So hopefully I can get out of the house. I'm not in complete lockdown. Other than that, looking forward to it. Check out Google Classroom for all the stuff and supplemental information you need to know.